The palace was quiet, darker than usual, with only the faint hum of energy flowing through its walls. Nisera, the Dragon Queen, moved silently through the long corridors, her scales shimmering faintly under the moonlight. Her wings were folded tight against her back, and her claws made no sound on the smooth floors. For centuries she had ruled with wisdom and strength, yet tonight curiosity had driven her to leave her throne and roam the palace unnoticed. She had heard whispers from her court, rumors of a human mechanic who had somehow gained access to the palace's deepest chambers. Such audacity angered her at first. No human had ever been allowed near the sacred machines of her ancestors. Still, Nisera's instincts told her to see for herself before passing judgment. She paused near the entrance to the central chamber, the source of the rumors, and peered inside. There, amidst towering machines and glowing energy cores, stood a small human. His name was Kale, and he moved with a focus and precision that surprised her. Sparks flew from the tools in his hands as he adjusted delicate wires and rotated panels with careful accuracy. One of the enormous energy cores hummed, reacting to his touch, and the lights of the chamber flickered as if acknowledging his presence. Nisera froze, unsure if she should roar and demand his head, or study him further. Kale worked without fear, unaware of the immense eyes watching him from the shadows. His concentration was absolute. He adjusted a panel, twisted a key component, and the machine shifted smoothly, coming to life with a soft, controlled hum. Nisera blinked, astonished. She had never seen a human with such skill. For centuries, humans were considered weak and insignificant. But here was one, standing in her palace, handling sacred technology as if it were second nature. Her mind raced. Who had allowed him to enter? Was he a spy? A thief? Or had fate sent him here for another reason? She stepped forward silently, careful not to disturb the shadows. Kale's back was to her, his hands moving over the controls. She could see the concentration on his face, the small beads of sweat on his brow, and she realized that this human was not here to steal. He was here to repair. The palace's machines had suffered during the last cosmic storm. Nisera had known that some parts were damaged, but the thought of a human touching them had never occurred to her. And yet, Kale worked carefully, restoring each mechanism to its perfect form. Sparks danced in the air, lights glowed steadily, and the chamber seemed alive under his hands. Nisera's heart, long used to the power of dragons and magic, thumped with something unfamiliar. She was impressed. Suddenly, Kale's hand slipped slightly, and a small panel threatened to collapse. Nisera's claws itched to intervene, but she stayed still. She watched him recover smoothly, adjusting the mechanism with patience and skill. His movements were precise, almost elegant, and his knowledge of the machine seemed deeper than she expected. It was then that Nisera realized something important. Humans might be fragile, but their minds were capable of understanding and creating things even dragons could not. For hours she observed silently. The human worked through the night, repairing broken circuits, recalibrating energy cores and testing controls. The palace seemed to breathe under his touch, the machines responding as if grateful. Nisera noticed how he handled each tool with care, never wasting effort and always thinking ahead. She had seen dragons with immense strength and wisdom, but she had rarely seen intelligence combined with such patience and creativity. As dawn approached, Kale finally paused, stepping back to admire his work. The machines were fully operational, lights glowing steadily, and the hum of energy was smoother than it had been for decades. Nisera finally stepped forward, making her presence known. The sudden movement startled Kale, and he spun around, eyes wide. But instead of fear, Nisera saw determination in his gaze. He had expected the queen might appear, and he did not flinch. You should not be here," Nisera said, her voice low but filled with authority. She folded her wings slightly, careful not to appear too threatening. Kale bowed respectfully, understanding the gravity of his actions. "I know, Your Majesty," he said simply. "But the machines were damaged. I only wanted to repair them." Nisera studied him, her glowing eyes narrowing slightly. She could feel his honesty and sincerity. He had not come to steal or to spy. His hands were steady, his actions careful, and his knowledge remarkable. For the first time, Nisera felt curiosity override her instinct to punish. She wanted to understand him, to see how a human could accomplish what dragons could not. "You have skill, unusual skill," she said finally. Kale looked at her with quiet respect. "I learned from many sources, Your Majesty. I only hope to help." Nisera's scales shimmered in thought. Perhaps this human could be an asset rather than a threat. Perhaps humans were more capable than she had ever believed. She decided to leave him for now, to watch further before making a final judgment. As she retreated into the shadows, Kale continued his work, unaware that the Dragon Queen herself had observed every movement. The palace hummed with renewed energy, and Nisera felt a small spark of hope. Perhaps this human was the beginning of something new, a partnership that could change the way dragons and humans work together. By the time the sun rose, Nisera had vanished from the chamber, leaving Kale to his work. She returned to her private quarters, pondering what she had seen. Humans were fragile, yes, but their minds could be extraordinary. Kale had proven that intelligence, patience, and courage could rival even the greatest dragons. She felt a strange anticipation, the kind that came before the unknown. She knew the human would return to the palace again, either by fate or design, and when he did, their paths would cross in ways that could change the future. And so, the night ended, leaving the Dragon Queen with a mind full of questions and a heart quietly intrigued by a human who dared to enter her palace and touch the sacred machines. Nisera realized that the story of her reign, and of this unusual human, was only beginning. The next morning, Nisera could not stop thinking about the human mechanic, Kale. She had spent centuries ruling with her instincts and power, but something about this small, fragile creature intrigued her. How could a human, so weak in body, work with machines that even her advisors feared to touch? The thought made her decide she needed to see more. Nisera waited until the palace was quiet, then slipped through the corridors once again, moving silently like the shadow of a storm. She reached the central chamber where Kale was already at work. Today he was repairing a complex energy conduit, a vital system that powered much of the palace. Sparks flickered around him, but he moved with calm and precision as if dancing with the machine itself. Nisera observed him from the shadows. She noticed small things, a tilt of his head as he analyzed a component, the way his fingers adjusted delicate wires, the careful balance between pressure and gentleness. No dragon had ever worked with such subtlety. His skill was not just in strength or knowledge, it was in understanding, in patience, in seeing connections others could not. For hours she watched. Kale dismantled broken sections, repaired circuits, and reconnected energy flows. He worked systematically, solving problems as they appeared. Sometimes he paused to inspect the machine with his tools, sometimes he closed his eyes and seemed to think, letting the machine guide him. Nisera realized that his talent was rare, not just mechanical but intuitive. He could read the machines almost as if they were alive. Curiosity overcame her. Nisera stepped slightly forward, just enough for a hint of her shadow to touch the floor. Kale froze for a moment, sensing a presence, but he did not panic. Instead, he glanced around cautiously, his instincts sharp. Nisera revealed herself fully, stepping into the light. "You work quickly," she said, her voice low, powerful, yet calm. Kale straightened immediately, bowing slightly. "Your Majesty. I only do what I must to fix the damage," he replied. There was no fear in his voice, only focus and respect. Nisera tilted her head. His courage was unusual for a human, and his respect for her authority was balanced with independence. "I have watched you," she continued. "You move with purpose. You understand machines in ways my advisors do not. Tell me, how do you know this?" Kale wiped his hands on a cloth, thinking. "I studied many things. Books, blueprints, observations. And I listen. Machines tell you what they need if you pay attention. You just have to watch carefully." Nisera's glowing eyes narrowed as she studied him. A human speaking so confidently about machines was unusual. Most would tremble in her presence or make mistakes out of fear. Kale, however, spoke with certainty and calm. His knowledge was real and his hands proved it. She decided to test him. With a motion of her claw, she powered down a secondary conduit, a smaller energy core feeding the palace's defense systems. Kale's eyes widened slightly, but he did not panic. Instead, he analyzed the problem, kneeling to inspect the core. His fingers moved over the wires, adjusting connections, rerouting energy. Sparks flew, but he worked steadily. Within minutes, the core hummed again, restored perfectly. Nisera's eyes widened. She had expected at least a small failure. Most humans could barely manage simple repairs, let alone a core connected to multiple systems. Kale's success impressed her deeply. "You understand machines that even dragons fear to touch," she said softly. "This is remarkable." Kale looked up at her, brushing sweat from his brow. "It is not about fear, Your Majesty. It is about understanding and patience. You cannot rush a machine, it will show you the way if you observe carefully." Nisera considered his words. Dragons relied on strength, on power and instinct. Humans, it seemed, relied on patience, intelligence and observation. She realized that these qualities could complement her own abilities. She had never needed a human before, yet Kale's skills showed that they might be indispensable allies. Over the following days, Nisra continued to observe Kale in secret. She watched how he diagnosed problems, how he adjusted delicate systems without damaging them, and how he remained calm under pressure. He treated each machine with respect, never underestimating its importance. Even the palace's oldest and most intricate mechanisms responded to his touch, humming and shifting as if recognizing his command. One evening, Nisra approached him fully, deciding it was time to speak. "Kale," she said, her tone serious but curious, "you have skills that could benefit this palace greatly. Have you ever considered using them to help more than just repairs?" Kale looked at her, slightly confused. I never thought beyond fixing what is broken, Your Majesty. But if my skills can serve the palace and the people, I will do whatever I can." Nisra nodded. She could see the potential for something greater, a partnership where human ingenuity and dragon power work together. "Tomorrow I will give you a task. It will not be simple. But I believe you can do it," she said. Kale's eyes lit with determination. "I will not fail you, Your Majesty," he promised. That night, Nisra remained awake, thinking. She had seen humans only as fragile, short-lived beings before. Kale had changed that perception. His patience, intelligence, and skill were rare gifts, and she felt a new kind of respect for him. Perhaps humans, when guided and trusted, could achieve what dragons alone could not. The palace, silent and glowing with repaired energy, seemed to breathe around them. Machines hummed in quiet approval, and Nisra felt anticipation for what was coming. She had witnessed the hidden skill of a human, and now the question remained, could this skill protect the palace when true danger arrived? Nisra knew the answer was not yet clear, but one thing was certain. Kale's presence had awakened a new possibility. A small human with steady hands and a sharp mind could change the balance of power. And the Dragon Queen was ready to see just how far this hidden skill could go. The next morning, the palace was bathed in a soft golden light. Nisra, the Dragon Queen, watched Kale from her hidden vantage point. Today was the day she had decided to test him. If the human truly possessed skill and patience, he would need to face a challenge that went beyond simple repairs. She wanted to see whether he could handle responsibility under pressure and whether his judgment could be trusted with the palace's most critical systems. Kale moved calmly through the corridors, carrying tools and small parts in a neat bag. He had grown used to the palace's scale and complexity, though he still marveled at its glowing chambers and massive energy conduits. His respect for Nisra had deepened, even if he had not yet seen her full power. He understood that she was a ruler who demanded excellence, and he was determined to meet her standards. Nisra approached him in the central chamber. Her wings were folded behind her, but her presence was commanding. Kale stopped and bowed slightly. "Your Majesty," he said quietly. "You wish to see me?" "I do," Nisra replied. "Today you will face a test. A section of the palace's energy grid is unstable. It powers the outer defenses, and if it fails, the palace could be vulnerable. I want you to repair it, but with one condition. You may not rely on anyone else. You must work alone." Kale nodded, swallowing his nervousness. He had faced difficult repairs before, but this was more than a test of skill, it was a test of trust. Nisra's eyes glimmered as she watched him prepare. She sensed that this human could handle challenges, but she needed confirmation. Could he think quickly, stay calm, and make decisions under pressure? The corridor leading to the energy grid was long and dimly lit. Kale carried his tools carefully, mindful of every step. He arrived at the control hub, a massive console covered in panels, wires and switches. Sparks flickered from broken conduits, and the air smelled faintly of ozone. Kale's hands moved confidently, identifying the sections that needed attention. He paused to study the layout, making a mental map of the system before touching anything. Nisra followed silently, hidden behind a pillar. She watched every movement, every choice Kale made. He worked methodically, shutting down damaged conduits in sequence, rerouting energy flows and replacing worn-out components. His hands moved fast but never recklessly. He paused to inspect each repair, testing connections before moving on. Suddenly, a warning light flashed, a surge in the main conduit. Kale's brow furrowed. If he miscalculated, the outer defenses could fail, leaving the palace exposed. He took a deep breath, steadying his hands, and analyzed the surge. Then, with careful precision, he rerouted power temporarily, stabilizing the system while repairing the damaged conduit. The hum of the energy grid returned to a steady rhythm. Nisra's eyes widened. She had expected hesitation, maybe even failure. Instead, Kale had handled the crisis calmly and efficiently. His judgment had been correct, and his hands had followed his mind perfectly. She felt a mixture of pride and surprise. This human was proving himself capable in ways she had never imagined. Hours passed as Kale continued the repairs. The task was exhausting, requiring both skill and patience. Yet he never lost focus. He double-checked each connection, monitored energy flows, and adjusted circuits carefully. Nisra observed quietly, noting how he treated the machines with respect and thoughtfulness. Each action was deliberate, each decision measured. It was not just technical skill he displayed, it was understanding and responsibility. As the sun began to set, Kale completed the final repair. The energy grid hummed steadily, the outer defenses fully operational, and the palace's system stabilized. He leaned back, wiping sweat from his brow, and looked at the machines with satisfaction. Nisra stepped forward, revealing herself fully this time. "You have done well," she said, her voice both approving and commanding. "You have repaired what many thought impossible, and you did it alone. Your skill is remarkable, but more than that, you have shown judgment and calm under pressure. That is why I tested you." Kale bowed again. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I only do my best." Nisra's glowing eyes studied him. She could see honesty in his posture, confidence without arrogance, and a deep respect for the palace and its systems. "You have proven that humans are capable of more than I expected. You can think, adapt, and act where many dragons might hesitate. I trust you now." Kale felt a mixture of relief and pride. The Dragon Queen's acknowledgement was more than praise, it was an acceptance. He had passed the test, not only by repairing the machines but by proving he could be trusted with responsibility. Nisra, seeing his potential, decided to take a further step. "Tomorrow, Kale, you will begin work on an even greater project. It is a task that requires both skill and creativity, and it will affect the entire palace. I want you to plan it and execute it with your judgment. You may not ask for help unless you believe it is necessary. I want to see how you lead with intelligence." Kale's eyes lit up with determination. "I will not disappoint you, Your Majesty," he said firmly. That night, as Kale rested in his small quarters within the palace, Nisra reflected on the day. She had watched him navigate challenges that would have overwhelmed most humans and even some dragons. His ability to remain calm, analyze problems, and make sound decisions had impressed her deeply. She realized that his hidden skill was not just in mechanics, but in thinking, adapting, and taking responsibility. The palace itself seemed to hum in quiet approval, its systems alive and stable. Nisra knew that Kale's presence would change the way she viewed humans. They were small, fragile, and short-lived, but their minds could match dragons in ingenuity, patience, and courage. She felt anticipation for what they could accomplish together. And so, the first test of trust ended successfully. Kale had proven himself, not only as a mechanic but as a thinker, a problem solver, and a reliable ally. Nisra realized that this human could play a vital role in the palace's future, perhaps even changing the balance of power between humans and dragons forever. As the night deepened, Nisra returned to her private chamber, feeling a quiet respect for the human who had earned her trust. Kale had passed the test and their partnership was beginning, not just of strength and skill but of trust, intelligence, and mutual understanding. The palace, glowing with steady energy, seemed ready for the challenges to come. The palace had grown calm after Kale's successful test, but Nisra sensed that peace would not last. She prowled the upper corridors late one night, her senses alert for any disturbance. For centuries, the palace had been a fortress, protected from enemies near and far. Yet even she knew that threats could arrive when least expected. Something was stirring, and her instincts told her it would test both her and Kale. Meanwhile, Kale was working in the lower maintenance chambers. His focus was on the delicate repair of an energy relay, ensuring that the palace's defensive systems would function without flaw. He had grown confident in his abilities, but Nisra's warning to remain vigilant echoed in his mind. He knew that any mistake could endanger the palace, and possibly their lives. Suddenly, an alarm flashed in the distant hallways. Red lights pulsed, accompanied by a low warning hum. Kale straightened, heart racing as he rushed toward the source. The palace's security grids had detected movement. An intruder had entered the inner chambers. It was rare for anyone to reach these areas, and the intruder's speed suggested skill and intent. Nisra arrived moments later, wings spread and eyes glowing. She assessed the situation quickly. "Kale," she said, her voice low but commanding, "you have proven skill and judgment. But now you must use both. This intruder is not ordinary. Trust your instincts and act carefully. Kale nodded, gripping his tools tightly. He moved with determination, yet remained cautious. The intruder could be armed or worse, a being with knowledge of the palace's inner workings. Every step he took was measured, analyzing shadows and sounds, preparing for any sudden movement. They reached the corridor leading to the intruder. The doors were slightly ajar, a sign of forced entry. Kale peeked inside. A figure moved with silent speed, attempting to tamper with the energy conduits. Sparks flew from a panel the intruder had mismanaged. Kale's mind raced. This was no ordinary thief, this was someone trained to infiltrate. Nisra stepped beside him, her presence intimidating. The intruder froze, sensing the combined authority of dragon and human. Kale realized that he had to act quickly but carefully. Any aggressive move could provoke the intruder into damaging critical systems. He assessed the controls, looking for a way to secure the room without confrontation. With precise skill, Kale activated a series of security locks, trapping the intruder in a small section of the chamber. The figure growled, frustrated, and tried to escape, but the locks held fast. Nisra's eyes glowed brighter, and her tail lashed the floor in warning. She let Kale handle the situation, testing not just his skill, but his courage under threat. The intruder struggled, but Kale remained calm. Using a combination of mechanical knowledge and quick thinking, he disabled the intruder's tools and rerouted power so the intruder could not cause further damage. Each movement was deliberate, showing patience and intelligence under pressure. Nisra watched silently, impressed. The human's abilities went beyond repairs. He could handle danger, think under stress, and make decisions quickly. Finally, the intruder exhausted attempts to escape. Nisra stepped forward, her wings spreading wide, casting a shadow over the figure. Her voice, powerful and commanding, echoed through the chamber. You will leave this palace immediately or face the consequences. The intruder hesitated, then realized that resistance was futile. With a reluctant growl, the figure retreated, disappearing into the corridors from which it had come. Nisra's gaze followed, ensuring the intruder did not return. Only then did she turn to Kale, her expression softening. You handled that well, she said. You kept your mind clear under pressure, protected the palace, and neutralized the threat without unnecessary force. That is not common among humans, or dragons. Kale exhaled, relief washing over him. He had faced danger and succeeded, relying on both skill and patience. Thank you, Your Majesty. I did what I could, he said humbly. Nisra nodded. She knew this test was more than about skill, it was about trust. She had seen the human rise to a challenge, thinking beyond immediate danger, protecting the palace and herself. Kale had earned more than approval. He had earned respect and acknowledgement of his value. Over the following days, Nisra allowed Kale to participate in more critical repairs and system upgrades, testing his abilities further. Each time, Kale's skill impressed her more. He could analyze complex problems quickly, adapt to unforeseen issues, and act decisively. And each time he showed patience and respect for the palace, the machines, and her authority. Nisra realized that Kale's presence was changing the palace itself. The machines seemed to respond to him in a way they had not before. The corridors, halls, and chambers pulsed with renewed energy, as if the human had awakened something ancient within the palace. She felt a sense of anticipation. This small human could be the key to protecting the palace against threats she had never faced. One evening, as they walked through the halls after another successful repair, Nisra spoke quietly. Kale, you have shown skill, courage, and judgment. But remember, threats will not always announce themselves. Trust your instincts, stay calm, and never underestimate the danger. The palace relies on both of us now. Kale nodded, understanding the weight of her words. I will be ready, Your Majesty. I will not let the palace fall. The Dragon Queen studied him, realizing that humans were capable of much more than she had thought. Kale had proven that strength was not only in claws and fire, but in intelligence, patience, and courage. And now, faced with real danger, he had risen to the occasion. That night, the palace remained silent, the intruder gone but the memory of the threat lingering. Nisra knew that danger could return at any time, but she felt confident with Kale by her side. Together they had faced the first real challenge and had emerged stronger. The palace hummed with energy, alive and secure, and Nisra realized that the trust she had placed in this human had been rewarded. Kale had passed not only a test of skill, but a test of courage and responsibility. And the bond between dragon and human, tested in fire and challenge, was growing stronger. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, Nisra thought. But for now the intruder had been dealt with and the palace stood safe. Kale had proven that humans, when guided and trusted, could rise to meet threats that even dragons might hesitate to face. The future of the palace, and the partnership between dragon and human, was only beginning. The palace had returned to a peaceful rhythm after the intruder's failed attempt, but Nisera, the Dragon Queen, knew that calm was fragile. She looked at Kale as he worked on the central energy hub, adjusting delicate circuits and monitoring conduits. His hands moved with steady confidence, and his eyes scanned every system with care. The Dragon Queen had watched him grow from a simple mechanic into a trusted guardian of the palace's most important systems. Kale had changed too. He moved through the palace with more certainty now, understanding both its machinery and the power that lived within its walls. The lessons he had learned under Nisra's watchful eyes had made him more than a human skilled with tools. He was a thinker, a problem solver, and someone who could act decisively when danger arose. Nisra stepped closer, her wings folding behind her. "Kale," she said, her voice calm but commanding, "you have proven yourself through tests, through skill and through courage. The palace stands because of you. But our work is not done. I want to ask something more." Kale paused, looking up from the humming panels. "Anything, Your Majesty," he said. "I will do what I can." "This palace is ancient," Nisra continued. "Its machines are older than most civilizations. They respond to power and intelligence but also to trust. You have proven both. I believe we could do more together, not just protect this palace but strengthen it and prepare for threats beyond these walls." Kale felt a rush of determination. He had never imagined that a human could work beside a dragon queen as an equal in matters of palace defense and maintenance. Yet here he was, trusted and respected. "I will do my best, Your Majesty," he said. Nisra's eyes softened slightly. She had ruled alone for centuries, relying on fear and strength to maintain order. But with Kale she felt something different, a partnership built on understanding and respect. "We will need to plan," she said. "The palace's systems are vast. If we combine your skill with my power, we can reinforce defenses, improve energy flow, and ensure that no intruder or enemy can succeed. We will work as a team." Kale's mind raced with possibilities. There were systems he had never touched, energy flows that had remained dormant for decades. With Nisra's knowledge and guidance, he could learn faster, reach farther, and protect the palace in ways he had never imagined. "I am ready, Your Majesty," he said, his voice steady. "Show me what to do." Over the next few weeks, Kale and Nisra worked side by side. They examined old conduits, repaired damaged systems, and strengthened the palace's defenses. Kale applied his mechanical knowledge, intuition, and careful observation, while Nisra lent her power and understanding of the palace's ancient energy. Together, they discovered hidden chambers, untapped energy cores, and secret passageways that could be used to move quickly if danger arrived. The more they worked together, the more Nisra realized the value of humans. They were small, yes, and fragile, but they could think, adapt, and create solutions that dragons with all their strength might overlook. Kale's patience, ingenuity, and calm under pressure were qualities she had not expected, yet they were exactly what the palace needed. One evening, as the sun set over the glowing spires of the palace, Nisra and Kale stood atop the highest tower, overlooking the grounds. The palace hummed around them, alive with energy. Kale adjusted a control panel, monitoring the energy levels as Nisra spread her wings slightly, feeling the pulse of power beneath her. "You have done well, Kale," Nisra said quietly. "Together we have made this palace stronger than it has been in centuries. I trust you completely, and I believe we can face anything that comes." Kale smiled faintly, feeling a deep sense of pride and responsibility. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I never imagined I could have a role like this. I only hope I can continue to serve." "You will," Nisra replied. "And more than that, you will be my partner. Not a servant, not just a mechanic, but a trusted ally. Together we will ensure this palace and its people are safe, and perhaps even prepare for what lies beyond these walls." From that day forward, Kale's life changed. He no longer worked alone in the shadows of the palace. He was part of a team with Nisra, respected and trusted, facing challenges and solving problems that once seemed impossible. The palace itself seemed to recognize the bond, humming and glowing with renewed energy whenever Kale and Nisra worked together. Visitors to the palace noticed the change too. Guards, advisors, and even other dragons observed Kale with a mixture of curiosity and respect. He was no longer just a human mechanic, he was a key figure in the palace's defense, a symbol of what humans could achieve when trusted and guided. Nisra, once solitary and cautious, had learned to rely on a human's skill and judgment. She realized that strength alone was not enough to protect her realm. Partnership, trust, and intelligence were equally important. Kale had shown her that humans could be more than fragile creatures. They could be allies capable of incredible accomplishments. Months passed and the palace flourished under their combined efforts. Systems operated more efficiently, defenses were stronger, and the energy cores glowed with steady brilliance. Kale continued to learn from Nisera, while also teaching her how to think about machines in new ways. Their respect for each other deepened, forming a bond built on mutual trust and shared responsibility. One morning, as they oversaw a test of the palace's outer defenses, Nisera turned to Kale. "You have changed this palace, Kale. But more importantly, you have changed me. I see now that dragons and humans together can achieve what neither could alone. Our partnership is the start of something new." Kale nodded, feeling the weight and honor of her words. "I will continue to serve your majesty. Not just as a mechanic but as your partner, your ally, and someone you can trust." Nisra's eyes glowed softly in approval. "Then let us move forward together, Kale. There are challenges ahead and we will face them as one. Dragon and human, power and skill, intelligence and instinct, we will protect this palace and perhaps even shape the future of our world." From that day the palace was not only safe but thriving. The partnership of Nisera and Kale became legendary, a story told among dragons and humans alike. It proved that when strength is combined with intelligence, patience and trust, even the smallest creatures can stand beside the mightiest rulers. And so, a new era began. The Dragon Queen and the human mechanic, once worlds apart, now stood together as protectors, allies and partners. Together they ensured that the palace, and the world it protected, was ready for anything the future might bring. The hum of energy, the glow of power, and the careful hands of the human and the watchful eyes of the dragon would guard their realm for generations to come.